Good evening, and welcome to Education Number One Priority. I'm Dr. Jane Garza. Well, I know you know that school districts have trustees, elected positions. Universities have regents appointed by the governor, and community colleges, of which we have 50 in the state of Texas, we have Board of Regents, elected positions. Have you ever wondered just exactly what are the responsibilities of a regent? Just exactly what does a community college aim for? And how do they decide what route they're going to take? Well, this evening, we have with us two of the Board of Regents from Del Mar College, the President, Trey McCampbell, and the Vice President, Elva Estrada. Let us welcome Mr. Trey McCampbell and Elva Estrada. Welcome to Education Number One Priority. So glad to have both of you here.
Thank you for having us. This is a great opportunity. We love to talk about Del Mar College, don't we?
Sure do.
All right. Well, that's what we're going to do.
This is a 3-hour program, isn't it?
Well, I'd love to tell you that it is, but what we can do is divide it into segments and make this our first 30-minute segment.
How about that? We'll
All right. Well, first let's begin by asking you, how long have you been on the Del Mar board, and what are the responsibilities of the president?
Actually, I have been on the board now 9 years. I have been board chair. We actually differentiate it's president of the college, and then we're chair and vice chair of the board. And we do that so there's no confusion between the management of the college, which is a responsibility of the administration team, and the governance of the college, which is the responsibility of the Board of Regents. I've been board chair now, I guess, 5 years, and have 1 more year on my board chair term, and 3 more years on my term on the Board of Regents.
All right. Let me follow up on that. Why? Why become a Board of Regents?
Well, I think we each have our stories, and I think it'll be great to hear Elva's too. But for me, there's several reasons, but probably the most closest to my heart reason to be a regent is that I am a local Corpus Christi native, I guess you could say. I grew up here. I grew up on the west side of town. I really wouldn't have a college degree if it weren't for Del Mar College. The fact that it's accessible, that it was affordable, and there was a high-quality education, and provided me a background to transfer on to now A&M Corpus Christi. So when the opportunity came to serve, and I thought about that, I thought, gosh, this is something I really want to do. As sort of trite as it sounds, I wanted to give back to both the college and to our community.
Okay, thank you so much. Mrs. Estrada, let me ask you now, Vice Chair. So what are the responsibilities of the Vice Chair?
Well, first of all, I'd like for everybody to know that I've been on the board since 2006. I'm going on 7 years. And then as the Vice Chair, there's not a lot of responsibilities. However, they are very important. You know, I do get to perform the duties of the chair when the chair is not there, and he's usually there all the time, which is good. And then also I do attend agenda planning meetings with the chair and the president of the college and his team so that we can prepare for the month's meeting. And then also there's other functions as specified by the board. I know that, about 5 years ago, the administration wanted somebody to sit on the strategic planning team. And it seems like everybody looked at me and said, you've got the educational background, you do it. And I said, you know what? I will do that. I can do that. You know, I'm familiar with as a former school principal, I was in charge of our campus improvement plan, and there's not a lot of difference. You know, we have the goals and the mission, the vision, and it's pretty close, except this is at a little higher level. So I accepted that challenge. Have been on the strategic planning committee for 5 years now.
Well, I guess that's a good question for me to follow up, and I think you've answered it in the process of that. Why did you decide to say, I'm going to seek an election to the Del Mar board?
I'll tell you what, I retired in 2003. I was in education for 35 years. And after I retired, it was like there was this, I had been around kids, elementary, high school students for 35 years. And then I retired. It was like there was this emptiness, you know. I just felt like I needed to do something. And I wasn't sure at the time. I said, I need to get involved. So I went back to work while you were assistant superintendent at West Oso. I was an assistant principal at the high school, thoroughly enjoyed it. But then I got an offer from a book company, and I went to work for them, worked for them 1 year. And then after that, I knew there was an election coming up for the Del Mar board, and it just so happened that the late Senator Carlos Tran called me one day and asked if I was interested. And I said, well, you know what, that'll give me something to do. And at that point, I really wasn't ready to go work every day. And I said, you know, this is good once a month. Well, it's not once a month. It seems like we're always meeting. But anyway, it was the Senator Tran that called me, encouraged me, along with a good friend of mine, Miss Joan Vide. They called, they said, we'll help you, Elba. This is something that you need to do. This is a good place for you. And I went ahead and filed for the position, and I won. So I've been on the board since 2006.
Well, to both of you, congratulations on that election, and glad to have both of you as elected officials here. But let's visit now about what are the responsibilities of a region. So they get elected, so you're sworn in, and then what?
And then what? Yes, that's always the question when you show up for that first meeting, isn't it? I always like when I'm talking to people to make sure that they understand the difference between the responsibilities of the border regions and the responsibilities of the college president and the college president's administration team. You know, quite simply, our responsibility is governance, and the responsibility of the college president, and in this case his team, Dr. Escamilla's team, is management. And that's really important for a couple reasons. First and foremost, SACS, Southern Association of Colleges, the accreditation board says that boards need to be governance and that administration manages, and that's so that you don't have any violation of academic freedoms and things like that. We as the board only have one employee. That is the college president. And so when I get calls occasionally, someone maybe have questions about a course or why can't we do this or how do I get into that, you know, sometimes they can answer it, but most of the time I need to refer them to the appropriate people or departments on the college because we don't manage day to day. We're governance, which is fiduciary, you know, the financial situation of the college. It is also looking at the strategic direction, and as Elva talked about, the importance of the strategic planning process, and we have a really great, solid, community-based strategic planning process. And so we're involved with that. But then I think in a more simple sense, we're really sort of the eyes and the ears and the connection to the community. I mean, after all, it is a community college, and the community is the students, and it's serving the needs of our community. So we're there to ensure that those community needs are being met, to help connect the college to organizations and businesses and community needs that's going on in the community.
So it's a little more than just governance then, based on what you just finished saying.
But primarily governance is the big picture. That's the primary function. And I really like to distinguish that because when we get those calls that says, you know, I don't like this, I don't like that, and it's management, we can't fix that. In fact, our direct report is really the only person that we as Regents should be dealing with, and that's Dr. Escamilla. Not calling a teacher, not showing up in the teacher's classroom, not trying to micromanage that, or that violates our accreditation standards.
Sort of like school district trustees.
Yes, at least the way it should be.
Exactly, correct.
Not always sure it happens that way, but in any setting. But I think we have a great set of regents and a good team, and we're proud of the way they carry it.
And I know you've emphasized it like 3 different times, governance, but redefine governance one more time.
Well, you know, governance is the broad term, and specifically underneath that, there's the fiduciary, the financial responsibility, to make sure that we're operating soundly, financially appropriate. There is a strategic direction of the college, and so ultimately new programs come to us, but they're generally vetted and determined by the college administration and the folks in the different departments. And those are the 2 kind of primary functions of governance. I think from the standpoint of being a community college, the eyes and ears, the connection is not so much governance, but it's certainly a companion function.
Okay, so it's the connection to that community, okay, making sure the dollars are being well spent, making sure that the programs that are that will be offered are really in tune with what the community needs.
And that, and that financial will includes annually, you know, setting the tax rate. So we're very keenly aware that we're elected by the public. And so we're responsible to the public just like the college president is responsible to us.
Well, that's a good segue, Mrs. Thal, you might want to answer this. How many regents sit on the board?
We have 9 regents, 5 are single-member regents, and we have 4 that are at large.
Oh.
I happen to be one from a single member, which is District 3. Trey is an, excuse me, at large. And that's the way we operate. And speaking about that, you know, we are elected.
Right.
And I think that's really important. You know, I know there in the state of Texas, all of the college regions are elected, whereas in other states, when we've gone to ACCT conferences, we find out that there's many states that also have them appointed by the governor or by a governing body, but at Del Mar, we are elected, or in
But
Texas.
let's go ahead and focus, because you said there's single member,
Single.
and then you have at large.
Yes.
So tell me about, either one of you, about those single member districts, because our listening audience may be saying, you know, now I might be interested in something like that.
Sure. We have 5 single-member districts, which is District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I represent District 3, which is the northwest, the western part of Nueces County. And then we have Mr. Rivas, who represents District 1. Ms. Hutchinson represents District 3. And Mr. Todd Walters is representing District 4 right now, and Mr. Jim Box is in District 5, which is the Flower Bluff area, and then the other 4, Trey and Dr. Adame and Sandra Messberger,
And Mr. Watts.
and Mr. Watts are at large.
So basically then, geographic regions, those that Del Mar serves, get
Correct.
elected, as well as then just an at-large.
Correct.
All right, very
Correct.
good. Now, the next question, you've already started talking about that, Mrs. Estrada. As I was doing my research, all states have community colleges, but all states don't govern in the same way. In other words, like you said, some are appointed, some are elected, and some are directly associated with school districts or universities.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
In the state of Texas, we have 50. All right, 50 community colleges, and each of those colleges are very unique.
Yes.
And I think you mentioned the fact that that uniqueness not only comes from a geographical area, but by the strategic plan. So let's visit a little bit about that. Strategic planning, why is that important?
Oh gosh, everything at Del Mar or at any other community college for that matter revolves or centers around our strategic plan. We do prepare our goals, our vision statement, our goals, our objectives, and that is for 5 years. And we started, I wasn't on the board when they did the first strategic planning, but he was. But anyway, when they did the second one, which was back in I believe it was 2007, 2008, I was on the board then, so we worked on that. And then presently we're working on our strategic plan, and I believe it's 2014 to 2019.
Right.
And
Generally 5-year plans.
it's a 5-year plan, and one of the good things that happened this year, and we're not done yet. We still have about 2 more forums, and where we have invited the community to participate, give us some ideas as to how Del Mar can be better. I mean, we're already good, but let's
We're
make
great.
it better. We're wonderful, but let's make it better. And I know you had the opportunity to participate in one of our forums, and I know you had some great ideas. But I think one of the good things about our forums this year was that we included a lot of the superintendents from the area, and I don't think that had ever happened in the past. So I was very pleased because, you know, like I told Lenore Keys, who's the in charge of our strategic plan, you know, who else knows the students better than the superintendents, the high school principals, the teachers. So this year we had teachers, we had principals, we had superintendents. You were there, and they all participated, which was awesome. We do have our next meeting on Friday, and we're going to be looking at all the information we received and put it together. So.
And we can consider strategic planning so important. And, you know, it's required by SACS, let's be quite honest.
Exactly.
And you can carry out your responsibilities, both the administration and the governance board, the Board of Regents or the Board of Trustees, in a basic way, or you can choose to do it in a really meaningful, in-depth way. So what Elva just described about the deep connections to the community is really one of the reasons and the ways that we wanted to do that. But then we take it on the board a little step further. Every agenda item is pegged and it shows how it ties to a strategic plan item. And we like that tie to that. And then we get periodic reports, usually quarterly, at least twice a year, on how we're doing in the strategic plans in the current plan. So when this new one is approved next year, then now that becomes the plan for 5 years, and we get quarterly reports, we get annual reports, and every time something comes to the board, we try to make sure that what we do in our board meetings is something directly tied to the strategic plan.
And Lenore has always been really, really good about providing reports almost on a monthly basis to the board. But one of the things that I learned from you, and I don't think you know this, but about 2 years ago, I suggested that we start our meetings with our mission statement. And we do that at every meeting. And that I learned from you, because with HWNT, we would start our meetings with our mission statement. So thank you for the idea. Now it's wonderful to start our meeting with a mission statement.
I think it goes back to the primary purpose of a community college. In other words, when I hear that mission statement, you are exactly stating what the community college, what Del Mar stands
And
for.
it keeps you focused on what we're doing, but the fact that it's student success oriented really keeps us focused on that.
Yeah.
Mary Jane, a couple things just to illuminate also about the way the structure is, because it's one of the questions I get asked most. You know, there is a little bit of history about community colleges. It really started in Texas, at least, is to fill the gaps, particularly geographically, between the big signature, the UTs, the A&Ms, and things like that. And obviously you know that. I'm sure a lot of our audience may not know that. And every state's different the way they do that. We have 50 community colleges, some of them fairly large. They're a system like in Austin or Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth, and they may have multiple campuses. Others are, and it can have huge numbers of students, thousands, tens of thousands of students. You know, we're considered a pretty good size campus. We are probably student enrollment-wise at 11,000 in the top 10, maybe the top 7 within the state. And there's a lot of small campuses that are 2 and 3 students that may be serving West Texas or rural areas. And that's one of the beauties of what community colleges do. Other states, because maybe they're not as geographically abundant as we are in Texas, you know, they may have a whole statewide system. And so that's why I think state to state, some are elected, some are appointed. But quite truthfully, the fact we're elected, we think, puts us more directly in contact and held responsible by the public. That's important.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, and I'm glad you mentioned history. Del Mar College began about 1935, and it was directly connected to Corpus Christi Independent School District, and it became a direct result because of the Great Depression at that point. Then later it became a technical vocational with that academics, and so that goes back to that question that I'll ask again. So you change direction, you look at your strategic plan, you look at campuses, and you say, okay, here's what we need to do. I know that you don't use a crystal ball, but I do know you have an East Campus, a West Campus, and you just recently bought land for a new campus on the South Side. And so my question becomes, because I'm asked, so why another campus when we're in an age of technology, when most colleges are saying, let's streamline? And when you look at the amount of acreage that was bought, more than some of the campuses we currently have. So the question I ask is what I've been asked. Why another campus? Why so much land? And what crystal ball did you see that says we need this?
Well, yes, no one has a crystal ball, but what people do have is statistics and trends.
Okay.
And so this started really a number of years back with looking at, as a part of our annual statistical report, where geographically our students were coming from. And if you think back to 1935, as the offshoot of CCISD, they really thought it was going to be a 4-year college at some point. And it started and was quickly spun off of CCISD, and then eventually when they bought the land, moved from those temporary buildings associated with the ISD to the location that's at Baldwin and Ayers. You know, back then that was considered a heck of a lot of land,
Right.
relative to the population and the attendance at the time. And so for numbers of years, even when I went there, I grew up not far from the West Campus, but went to school on the East Campus, and both of those are serving sort of the geographic centers. And yet the statistics of where our students are coming from now have shown that there's a huge number of students coming from the far south side. And that's just because the city's grown that direction. Likewise, we have students coming, we serve a 14 county area, so we've got students coming from across the bridge. And while we don't have a permanent campus in some of those areas, we can set up some satellite classes. That's even why our Northwest Campus, which was started a couple years ago, which is in space that was virtually given to us for a nominal rent by the hospital out there, allows us to do basic training over in that area. Now, through this movement and growth of students and the growth correlating to the growth in the geographic residences, the housetops, the rooftops as we call them, of our students and households in Corpus Christi, yes, technology has come on board and there's lots and lots happening with that. And it works extremely well in a lot of classes. And particularly when the students need that flexibility of taking classes at odd hours. And there's still a lot of catch up with getting professors that are trained in doing that using the technology. But there's two factors that will always drive the need for what we call brick and mortar, meaning a physical branch. One certainly is that some classes just don't lend themselves to technology. I mean, how do you do a science lab online? I mean, certainly you can do some things creatively, but the real gain is when you're in a class with a professor or in a lab, and you can actually experiment some stuff on some specialty equipment. You can do a lot of your basic training in nursing, maybe anatomy online, but when you get into some of those hands-on things, I mean, I'm not sure I'd want a dentist who had done everything online, or dental assistant cleaning my teeth and then never got to practice in a real live room in a kind of setting. But related to that, there's lots of studies out there that talk about in education, and that in those of us in business that are hiring folks, that the students that don't operate in a vacuum of technology, but operate in collaborative groups, connecting with other students and working on projects together, come to us in the business world far better prepared to operate in the real world than someone who has learned in the vacuum of just online programming. And I think the bottom line to all of that is, and then I'll get to specifically the South Side, is that you need both, and there's some balance of that. The South Side, the far South Side campus, as I alluded to, was really because that's where the bulk of our students are coming from. And if you look at the housing potential in Corpus Christi, we've already pushed out there, and they're getting ready to jump the OSO. In fact, the master plan for the city and the area shows the next big freeway system that connects out there. So we know now with our crystal ball, sort of like they did in the 30s and 40s when they were buying this campus, that if you want to be in the hub and you want to have a campus for not just 10 years out, but probably 40, 50, 60, 70 years out, we needed something over there. So then the part that really becomes crystal ballish is not whether or not to do it, it's how much to do it. Then we started looking at all of the land that was available out there and how quickly it's being snapped up, particularly because of the boom we're in Corpus Christi, that if we didn't buy everything we thought we might need, and maybe even more for reserve, we were going to be locked out, and we had to do it pretty quick. So we did that, and we bought 100 acres. We anticipated everything we could. We bought at a prime corner where there's going to be future thoroughfare going over and bridges going over the OSO to the next big push out there. It's sort of in the crossroads. It'll be sort of the next South Padre Island Drive across town. Now, not in the near future, but at some point. And we bought more than we could ever anticipate, knowing that we control what we call in real estate controlling the edges. We're on two major road fronts. If we don't use all that, we can always sell it. And the beauty of it is, based on land prices that have continued to increase, we're protected. We're not going to necessarily lose money. And we're very keenly aware of that as taxpayers' responsibility. So we think it's the right decision for the now and for the future and the future.
So really it was not only an investment in future learning for students, but also future dollar investment in case you shouldn't use it.
Absolutely. And it's really about access.
Yeah, I'm hearing that. And I know our listening audience will like hearing that as well. Question appears, in the Chronicle of Higher Education, an article was published last year. And the article stated, what about community colleges in the future? And one of the prime sentences in there that really stood out was it said that if community college had not already been invented, they would be invented, because they really serve a major segment of the population. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Del Mar specifically. What is the difference in the academics that are offered at Del Mar College and at Texas A&M University?
Why don't you start, and I'll come after you.
Ladies first. Okay, sure. No, the difference is that Del Mar serves as a bridge between the high school and the college. And the courses that are taken at Del Mar can be transferred to a university. But then another purpose of our college is that we prepare the workforce. And saying that, there's many other reasons why we're asking about the purpose, why we're doing this, but I'm sorry.
But basically you're talking about the fact not only do you offer academics, but you offer vocational and technical training.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. Does Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, or Kingsville offer any vocational technical training that you know of?
No. As far as I know, they don't. And I also know that at Del Mar, there's a lot of courses. I don't know how to label them, but for enjoyment, I guess you would say, we have flower arranging, we have cake decorating, we have small motor repair. There's just a lot that Del Mar has to offer that are not offered at the universities.
Right. The other thing is you have a very quality nursing program, registered nursing, that can occur in 2 years as opposed to 4 years.
Correct.
They take the same exam.
Correct.
And basically, they're able to earn the same dollars. The only difference being that one is a 4-year bachelor's and the Bachelor of Science, and one
Correct.
is an
It's an
associate.
And both are important,
Right.
extremely important, because someone wanting to go through the 2-year program here is someone that, at least at that point in time, they want to do it because it's accessible. The tuition is cheaper. We're about a third of the other. And they're probably at that point not anticipating going into upper level management. If you're going to do that and ultimately get a master's in nursing, you need to go out there. So some students that know they want that master's, maybe want to teach, they're going to go straight to the 4-year program. Others may go back to it later if they
Right.
decide they get out in the workforce and they like that, and they start getting higher levels of positions, and they realize they need to get their 4-year degree and then their master's, and they will finish that out. Nursing is one of a good example of a program, maybe some of the IT courses, the computer courses, that you can come out with 2 years and have some technical degrees, but you may want the 4-year degree and ultimately a master's in it, and we partner very well with them. In fact, the stat I heard last year, I think I'm getting to get this pretty close to right, is about 2/3 of their incoming the first-time students at A&M, which is obviously after 2 years,
Right.
are coming from us. So there's a strong feeder system there, a strong connection. And it ties back to some of the differences, and the question you ask is not only is the technical difference there, but we still have a number of students that come here for those first 2 years and then transfer to other schools. In fact, 9 out of 10 of our arts and sciences students are going on. And they're starting here because it's accessible, it's affordable, high quality education. Over 2/3 of the people going through the technical side are involved in some sort of program where they have to get certified. Nursing has to be certified, different sort of certification exams, and we have about a 90% or higher, minimally a 90% or higher passing rate on those. So the quality is there, the affordability is there. It's sort of like you can serve all the needs of the community and how you want to do that.
Well, I thank you both so very much. Like you said, I wish it were a 3-hour program because there's still so many questions I'd love to ask.
We'll save them for the next time.
I will save it to the next time. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we know a little more about Del Mar Regents, and we also know more about their strategic planning and the governance issue as well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Dr. Mary Jane Garza, and this has been Education #1 Priority.